Welcome to the REI Hacker Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of real estate success. Join us as we dive into the journeys of top investors, mentors, and industry experts. Learn from their experiences and navigate the highs and lows of the investing world. And now, let's hand it off to our host, Benson Juarez.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm super excited. My friend John Galan is with me today. He is a pro real estate wholesaler. He is the co-founder of EasyRes, a real estate investing company that helps their partners get access to more viable deals and inventory. John, I'm super excited to talk to you today, man. I know you've been working really hard. This new venture that you're doing with Helena Wu is really just blowing up. I know you guys have been investing a lot of time and effort into growing your team and scaling and launching new markets. Man, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, so right now we're currently working on fully delegating out our Florida operation. We have I think we have 13 people on the team now, not including Helena and I. We just brought on 2 new disposition sales reps actually yesterday. So we're just working on getting it fully scaled out to where me and Helena don't have to do any of the day-to-day in the Florida, and it's still churning out the same volume and the same revenue that it was when we were operating. And then once that's kind of fully delegated the day-to-day, we're going to recreate the system in another market, branch off into a second market, then eventually a third, a fourth, a fifth, and then we're going to franchise the company.
That's an amazing plan. When do you think you'll get to the point where you start franchising after that 5th market?
I would say like immediately, like once the 5th market, once all 5 markets are pretty much running and each making a minimum of $500,000 a month, then we are going to franchise, because then the model's proven. No matter where the market is, the model works, right? So because that's what you're going to be buying as a franchisee is the model, right? That is proven to make $500,000 a month no matter what market. So once we open the 3rd market and we have the success on the 3, we're going to start the franchise process, because it takes about a year for all the paperwork and everything to go through. And then pretty much the paperwork should come back by the time the 5th market is fully operational. And then we could start getting franchisees and selling the franchise.
That's super exciting, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You probably already have people who are like, hey, how do I get in line for when you start franchising? Like, you got a waiting list.
Yeah, we do have people very interested, asking us when we're going to be franchised out so they could become a franchisee. So, I told people it's probably going to be a 3-year timeline from today. But yeah, we got people ready. We got even people that are working on our team right now whose goal is to be a franchisee. So, we have some of our sales reps that wants to own a franchise once we franchise out, and they're learning from us from pretty much, the ground floor, because they're in here in the beginning as our sales reps, and then they're going to be a franchisee in the near future, which is pretty exciting too.
Oh, yeah. It really is, man. And I think back to like when you first started just a few years ago, you transferred over from, the finance world and being a CPA to doing wholesale deals. And, so many people struggle just to get that one deal, like their first deal. And most people just don't do it. And here you are looking at, $500,000 a month revenue goals, and then franchising. Like, what is that journey like to go from like not even doing a deal and just testing the waters and still having your CPA job to, man, we're gonna be franchising this thing out?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started wholesaling, like I already knew I wanted to build something big. So like I never had any intention of just doing 1 or 2 deals. When I decided like, hey, I'm going to wholesale, I already planned. I didn't have a franchise plan right away, but I already planned on building one of the largest wholesale operations in the country. So I was already shooting for the stars from the very beginning. So I never, it wasn't like it progressed, I always had that intention. And, I just held on to that. So I didn't focus on, the fact that in the beginning that I didn't get a deal or anything like that. I just knew, kind of where my journey was headed. And I knew where my destination was. So I just held on to the destination and I just enjoyed the journey through the process. But, I was working on my mindset from very beginning, and it was more mindset work than I would say education that really got me here, because it's the mindset that, gave me the beliefs and everything to keep moving forward and dealing with the rejections and, any of the like trials and tribulations you go throughout the journey of building any sort of business, as with building Privy. They're not every day is going to be all sunshine and rainbows. Like, you're going to have some dark days, but it's up to you if you're going to focus on the darkness or the fact that the light's coming right after the darkness, right? So that's kind of what I was
Mhm.
doing. And, I knew I didn't want to be a CPA or do accounting for the rest of my life, because I sacrificed the first 4 months of every single year to work for somebody else. And I was like, I don't want this when I have kids. I don't want to have to sacrifice and be depressed during Christmas, which is like the happiest time of the year. It was the worst time of the year for me because I was always sad. And
Mm.
then once I started juggling both, I was like, that's it. I'm done with accounting.
Did you have struggles with mindset early on? Like you said, if you were depressed, was that kind of like in you? Because I have a bit of that in me too, where, I'm not like ups and downs when it comes to my emotions. And I certainly had some really dark times as well. And so, you know, the emotionless heart I have is what I've had some friends tell me that in the past has kind of like been a good asset to me in business. Like, what were you like before you came to the business world, and how did it support you and how did it hurt you?
Yeah, I was never really big on like mindset work before came into the business world. I was more of the, you know, realist, where pretty much meaning I was negative, like, oh, I'm not negative, I'm just realistic. Like, I mean, it's pretty negative. So I was always like that in the beginning. I knew like I had ambitions and I knew that I was meant for more and that I was not, and not to sound cocky, that I was meant for greatness, right? Like, I felt that in me. I always knew that. So that part of the mindset never changed. But the visualizing, the knowing my path, the being mindful, the meditation, the kind of getting, not having like the dog eat dog, and instead of looking out for just me, but like trying to, look for the like collective and trying to help more people than I want to help myself. Like that, all of that kind of shifted once I got into mindfulness, once I got into the business space. But as a CPA, and I didn't really monitor my thoughts. I didn't really monitor my emotions or really, think about things that way. Like, I was kind of more like Newtonian and not really God centered, kind of just more ego driven, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna bust my ass type of thing, thinking hard work's gonna get me to where I want to go. But hard work is like maybe 10% of really getting you there, and the other 90% is all the mindset. So I wasn't big on that, and I didn't really have a lot of inner peace. So because I was still there, I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I wasn't super excited about the future, because every time, I think about the future, I was like, well, I'm not where I want to be yet. And I always focused on that. So I did have a lot of mindset struggles. I dealt with depression, really, really bad depression in like, I think it was maybe my junior year or senior year of college. I was
Mm.
very, very depressed for about a year, where, every day just felt like a gray cloud. So, just seeing how far I've come from that. And now where every day I'm happy and at peace, that's all from the mindfulness.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a complete 180 from before till now. And like I said, when I was depressed during Christmas time, it was because like I didn't like what I was doing. I was like, great, here we go. I got to work 9 to 9 Monday through Thursday. Then I got to work Friday and Saturdays doing taxes, which wasn't even that fun. And
Oh, taxes aren't fun. Y-
oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you had to
that
prove it
I
to
know I
yourself.
know it looks like it's a great time. All of your
It
CPAs and
it
accountants,
does.
love their life from January to April, but it's not what it's cracked up to be. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, I can imagine. What what was your family life like growing up? Like, did you have any sort of entrepreneurial background in your family, or what were your parents up to?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, it's from the old, the mindset that I would say most parents, I guess, have. Go to school, get a good education, get a good job, get some security in your job, and retire with a nice, pension and savings, right? And kind of be on
Yeah.
that deferred life plan. And I was kind of on that too in the beginning. I was on the deferred life plan, thinking maybe in 10 years I'll be able to enjoy my life type of thing. Let me sacrifice now for later, all that, right? So my parents were like that. My dad was a firefighter. My dad's a lieutenant in the FDNY. My mom was a school aide. at a public school near our house, and they didn't really, nobody was entrepreneurial in my immediate family. My uncle, he was very entrepreneurial. He started a couple businesses, they failed. Then he started a general construction company in New York City, and that blew up. And he's had a lot of success. So I didn't really pick his brain too much on the entrepreneurial side, but I've noticed as I've gotten entrepreneurial and started this business and gotten into things, like him and our relationships kind of gotten better, because now we have something to talk about together
Yeah.
instead of just, hey, Uncle Eddie, how you doing type thing.
Right.
But besides him, haven't really had entrepreneurs in my family. Everybody's kind of been like, get a good job, work hard, support your family, get security, don't take too many risks, that
Oh,
type
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. I didn't have that either. My dad was a police officer. So I always
Okay.
had that want to serve, right? Which is why I
Mhm.
joined the military, or at least, in part. Um, did you ever have any thoughts that you might, serve like your family has?
Nope. My
No.
brother's in the FDNY too. My dad
Hmm.
made me take the test. I was like, listen, I'm not going to do this. Like, there's no way. I knew to, um, I wanted to get into the financial aspect and learn about money and everything. So that's why I did accounting. At first, my plan was to get into art and try to make it as like a famous artist. I always had big plans. Like I said, I didn't want to just be another guy, right? My initials are JAG, and that usually JAG stands for just another guy. I didn't want to be just another guy. I knew that from the very beginning, even before I got into mindset. So I never had any plans to be in the, not that there's anything wrong with working for the city or being at FDNY or NYPD
Yeah.
or any of that stuff, right? Nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't in the cards for me. I would not have been happy, and I would have felt like I was not really reaching my potential. So even when I was accounting, my plans were to make it as a partner in the Big Four. That was my original plan when
Right.
I got to accounting.
Yeah. I mean, people who go to that job initially, that's what they're thinking, right? And by the way, JAG, another name for it is that's the name of an attorney in the military.
Oh,
They're
really?
called JAGs. Yeah. Um, so I can imagine back when you were, you just finished, college, you take the test, become a CPA, you start doing it. Your family had to have known that you weren't happy with what you were doing, and you decided not to follow in the path of your father and your brother, but they're like, okay, fine, cool, you can do your own thing. But now you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to be a CPA anymore. I'm going to go do this
Yeah,
wholesaling thing. Like, did their heads just explode?
of course it did. I that was after I had just done one deal. I only did one deal and I told them I'm quitting. And it was like right after um tax season was over, and they were like, "Are you kidding me? Like, think about this. Like, you're gonna like maybe try to do both. Like, you have a good job. Like, don't throw it away. All this thing." I was like, "Listen," and I sat them down, and I was already like kind of 5 months into consistent mindset work. So like, I went deep down the rabbit hole of mindset and really took that super serious. So, um, I had that conviction in me. So I sat my parents down. I was like, "Listen, guys, like." I'm not doing this job. Like, it's not for me. I'm not going to do it. It drains me. I don't care for it. I'm not going to be here long term. There's no point in wasting my time right now. I was like, I'm going to make this happen. Like, there's no way it's not going to work. Like, if I'm not asking you to, it's not a risk, right? Because I know what I'm going to do and I know how hard I'm going to work and I know that I'm going to make it happen. So just believe in me. Don't worry about if you know the industry or not. Just believe in me. And that's it. And they were like, all right, fine. So of course they were nervous every time. How's it going? You made any money yet? How? Oh, only $10,000. Like, what do you do? And like now at this point, they're kind of like, I'm very proud of you for taking that risk because I wouldn't have done
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And now they see. Now they know because here I am. I've done over 130 deals. I have a team of 13 people, and it's only been I've only been in the business for a full year and a half. I'm going on my second year now.
Amazing, man. That's amazing. So now they support you. They're like, oh, we knew all along you were going to be, you know, successful. Like, yeah. Or did they ever have that moment where, like, the bad days, right? Where like things didn't work out, where they were like, I told you, John, like, just go back to being a CPA.
No, because I never told them. I never said anything about bad
Mm.
days. Every time they were like, "How's it going?" I'm like, "It's going great. Everything's working. Like, oh, have you done a deal yet? Not yet, but things are coming. Like, things are really going great. So yeah, for sure, everything's happening. And so like I never told them like, oh, it's not good, I'm not getting deals, or things are slow, or how to cancel. You know, I've always painted them a good picture because everything was going great. You know what I mean? Everything was working. So it's not going to happen right away. All I knew is I was being consistent, and I was learning, and I was going in the right direction. Even if I canceled 15 contracts in a row, I still was locking up deals. I was getting better than I was before. I was feeling comfortable. I had maybe a couple of deals close here and there, but yeah, I wasn't focusing on the fact that things weren't working out, right? I was
Hmm.
just focusing on the fact that things are working, right? They're working the
Yeah.
way they're supposed to work. It's not up to me how they're supposed to work. I just got to focus on the destination. This is part of the journey that I'm on. So I would just focus on that. And, I also believe that there's no such thing as good or bad, right? It's kind of your perception of the situation.
Yeah.
So even if a deal fell through, yeah, I might think it's bad, but it might be better for the seller, or, it's good for the other wholesaler who locked it up and assigned it. So I just didn't look at those things as good or bad, as things that were supposed to happen, to lead me to the next step that I'm going to take up the ladder of success.
Right. Was there any cultural influence in how you were brought up? Like your last name is it Spanish?
Yeah, Spanish Hungarian.
Right. So Spanish background. Um, I'm not sure if you know much about your background, but so Galan means either bow or suitor from the Spanish lineage. And I was looking to see if I could find any famous Galans. Do you know of any in your past?
No.
Well, I'll give you one. Okay, there was a bunch. A lot of them were soccer players. A lot of
Oh yeah,
famous.
that I knew. I knew the soccer players because I used to Google my name before I
Yeah,
was on like YouTube and podcast to see if I ever came up or who did.
yeah, a lot of famous soccer players that come from your background. But I thought the one that was most interesting was Alfredo Galan. He was known as the deck of cards killer. He was a Spanish serial killer.
Holy crap!
Yeah, and that's recent too. Like it wasn't like 80 years ago. It was like within the last couple decades.
Holy crap!
Um, so what was some of the things that was most surprising to you when you discovered that you could do this, that like the old John and the new John, like how are those two people different?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the old John, I would say, let his emotions dictate how the day went. I would let things like traffic get me very angry, and I would avoid traffic at all cost, and let that dictate kind of my day. I would allow myself to be angry over things. I would allow my ego to kind of always be in the forefront of my mind and act from my ego type thing, and deal with frustrations. I wasn't very certain on the future. I wasn't super happy. Like I had happy moments, but it was conditional happiness. So I wasn't like every single day, I wasn't waking up just like, excited or feeling great, like today's a blessing, right? New John monitors his thoughts, monitors his emotions, knows that if I'm feeling frustrated about something, it's my choice if I'm gonna continue feeling frustrated, or if I'm gonna figure out what was the kind of catalyst of that, and then reframe that and make it a good thing. Or meditate or pray on that, and raise my vibration. And I know that I'm living in a fantasy world of my own creation, so pretty much whatever I want to happen, whatever I think about consistently, is going to be what my life is. So every morning I'm painting my life. I know I'm the artist, right? And holding the brush at all times. So usually you're painting subconsciously, but now I'm consciously and subconsciously making the portrait of my life. So I'm very, very in tune with like my thoughts, my emotions. I'm aware of the way I act and the way I do things. And now it's very collective conscious, like I said, oneness instead of separateness, and thinking, oh, only me, me, me. Like, how can I help more people than I help myself? And if I want something, I want it more for others than I do for myself. So the ego, I'm trying to go from ego to kind of like God consciousness more every day. So I'm trying to figure out how I could kind of strip myself away from the pride, the selfishness, the frustration, all of that, the anxiety. Like I don't even have anxiety anymore, because when you're anxious about something, it means it's out of your control, or you're worrying about something that isn't here yet, anticipating. But if you just surrender and allow, hey, listen, it's going to happen, right? Every day, it's going to happen. It's not my control, is the present moment. If I could focus on that, trust the future, and just accept the past, every day is just going to be, I'm just going to be peaceful because I'm not trying to change something I can't.
Yeah. And I read it that you are, one of the things that is most important to you is the community, where, now that you're part of this, it's almost like your second family. Like, tell me about how you've embraced the family of wholesaling.
Yeah, I mean, wholesale, no matter if you're in, Astro, TTP, Sub 2, or, any of the communities, everybody there, for the most part, is always kind of looking out for each other because they all come from the same, like, mindset of, like, collaboration over competition. So I'm always trying to help people because I know what I was like when I first started, and kind of feeling that lost and why I was doing it. So I always try to help people to, get kind of the ball rolling so they could start doing what they want to do, support their family, and also work on their mindset. Because regardless of if they are going to do wholesaling or not, if you have the right mindset, then that's more important than making money, because the time that you have will be spent better in a higher state than kind of stressing or worrying about the future and going through life kind of hoping for a better future, but never actually living in a better present, right? So the family aspect of wholesaling is just everybody, like, I feel like I've known them my whole life. Most of the people that I speak to, right? Especially when you meet them in person, because it's a different energy, right? And most of them are on that same wavelength when it comes to mindset, because of the teachings of Pace, Brent, and Jamil, all, kind of advocating for collaboration over competition. So I've helped a bunch of wholesalers get their first deals, even, gain clarity in things that they want or why things aren't working for them because of their constant, focus on what they don't want.
Right. Can you share a story of one of those instances where you help somebody? Like, is there a story you're most proud about, like helping somebody really overcome what was in front of them and they got their first deal, or they accomplished something? And can you share one of those?
Yeah. There was one person, Skylar, who would always show up to my calls. He was always sending out text messages. He was doing this part time. He was also a sheriff. And he would always just come up, right? Always show up. And, I would always tell him, just be consistent, keep doing your thing. It's inevitable. Like, focus on the deal getting done. No matter what, it's going to happen, type thing. And he used to keep sending me deals. My team, they didn't pan out. Finally, he sent us a deal and it wound up, the numbers worked out. There was a lot of issues on the seller side and title and everything, but we just kept saying, hey man, this is going to happen. This is deal number one. This is deal number one. It's going to go through, and collectively we both thought that, and we were able to get it done. All of the nonsense where a lot of, stuff happened where most people probably would have gave up on the deal or said, nah, this is too much, I can't do it. But he didn't, we didn't, we just kept like, hey, this is going to go through. Right? Deal number one's going through. And we wound up, everything worked out. We got it done, and he was able to get his first deal after months and months and months of consistency and trying and not having any success. He stuck with it, and it happened. And it wasn't the easiest. It wasn't a smooth first deal, I'll tell you that much. It was very rocky.
Oh yeah.
A lot of issues.
Yeah, and most are, right? And if a deal hasn't started to fall apart yet, then just wait until it does, right?
Oh
That's
my
kind of
God.
the cycle of how deals are. But
Yeah, I'm
what was
concerned
what
when a
was his
deal is smooth. When a deal is smooth, I'm like, what's going on here?
yeah. Yeah, what am I missing? There's
Yeah.
something, like, going back through the contract, you're checking everything to make sure it's
Yeah,
supposed
I
to be
call
right.
title. Hey, everything's good, right? We're closing tomorrow. Like, everything's good. Yeah. Holy shit. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. What was Skylar's reaction to closing that deal? Like, did he say anything that you can say that wasn't private? Like, how did he thank you?
I mean, he was just super grateful, super appreciative. He made a post in Astro, about his getting his first deal finally done, thanking us for that. We helped another kid, Luke, get his first deal done too. Again, not an easy one. We even had help in negotiations with the seller directly. But again, made a post, super grateful for us and me and Helena and all the work that we did to get that across the finish line. Like, they were small fees. Like, don't get me wrong, they were like $2,500 a pop. And because we knew it was their first deals, we really went above and beyond to make sure those closed, because we wanted, and this is where the whole consciousness comes from, the whole mindset, right? We didn't want to close a deal to get paid. We wanted to close a deal more so they could get their first deal done. And I also think that's why, because we
Yeah.
weren't coming from a place of like, hey, I want to get paid, like give me my money type thing. We came from a place like, hey, I don't care if I do this deal for free. I just want to get this kid his first deal.
Yeah.
And we've
That's
done deals for
amazing.
free multiple times. I got one closing on the 8th. That's free.
But somebody's making money in that transaction, right?
Yeah, the
Or
seller. They're
there's
just
there's some benefit, right? Like you're helping the seller out of a bad situation, and rather than just canceling the contract, you just you squash your fee
oh
to a
yeah.
point to maybe it's zero, but it's still going to close, right? And so sometimes you have to do that. That's just part of the business, but not everybody looks at it that way. They're like, if I don't make money, no one's making money.
Yeah, no, it's the wrong way to look at it, because not only do you get the seller out of their situation, you mean the agent gets paid, so you build a relationship with them if it's direct to agent, and then the buyer gets the property. They wanted it, so you give it to them at their price. They'll buy from you again for the most part, and if it's
Yeah.
through an agent, they'll remember that you closed a deal. And I mean, listen, it's a relationship game. It's not based really on the money. The money will come, you know,
Oh
through
yeah.
you doing business the right way.
Yeah, I agree. And that's how you approach this whole business in general. But there's a lot of shady stuff that happens in wholesaling,
Oh
right?
yeah.
There's a lot of shady characters. For some reason, it attracts people who are trying to get over on others.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who are in these distressed owner situations where they're in foreclosure or bankruptcy or probate, and so these crooks just kind of come into the space and they give the business a bad name. Like,
Yep.
what was one of the most surprising things that you learned about the business by actually doing it?
Really, the most surprising thing for me was just how much like cash is involved in the business. Because I can make my salary in a month that I was doing at working as a CPA. I was like, holy crap! There's a lot of to be made, but there's also a lot of people that just are a little slimy. Because people think it's a get rich quick type of thing. And you could definitely get rich. I want to say quick though, because you do have to put in the work, get told no. Yeah, you get your first deal pretty quickly sometimes, but then your second deal might not come for months later. So there's a lot of people that enter the space and leave the space real fast. So it's a revolving door. But I was surprised to see that some people like just don't care for anybody else but themselves. Like they
Yeah.
just do not care. They'd rather a seller, lose a house than them do a deal for free type of thing. And I was just very surprised by some of that, and you keep their names, you save them so you never do business with them again. You don't badmouth them to people, but if somebody asks a question, you say, hey, this is the type of person it is. But yeah, I was just kind of surprised at how, some people just don't care about anybody else's life. And, they won't, hey, if the situation was reversed, wouldn't you rather somebody in your position do this? They're like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Obviously they would, but like in the moment, they just so ego driven that they just don't care. And I was very genuinely surprised by that.
Yeah. And it's a small community too. As much as we think it's large, like bad word spreads fast.
Yep.
And if you just get over on one person, right, like that word will get out there, especially in these circles, right? You mentioned three of the most tightly bonded real estate communities in TTP, Astro, and Sub 2. And like, people learn fast. Like, you don't screw over others because you'll be out of the group, number one,
Mhm.
and then it'll affect your ability to do that business anymore in the future.
Exactly. And the same thing, the other way, if you do great business, people will talk, and, more people would want to do deals with you, business with you, and you'll get a lot more people coming and reaching out to you to do business because they know the way you operate.
Yeah, it goes both ways for sure. And I do believe that there's way more, good people in this business than there are bad apples.
Yep.
But that's also too the way that I think that, Jamil and Pace and Brent, vet out the people that come in. Like, they don't just let anybody in. Like, you got to talk with somebody, right? And they ask
Mhm.
you those questions about, your background, your intentions, and so hopefully they can weed out some of those bad apples by being
Exactly.
pretty diligent about who comes through.
Yeah, they are. And
Yeah.
if you don't fit the bill, they're not gonna just take the money to bring you to the mentorship, because it's not gonna be good for the people inside. And that's also, not what they believe in either.
Yeah. But that also explains why there's so much sort of regulation coming down from different government agencies about wholesaling. Like, what's your whole perspective on how they're forcing licensing in some states, and there's a lot more regulation about how transactions have to happen? How do you view that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. Like, I do think there should be licenses because, again, any way to just weed out the bad and that just gives more business to the good. I'm not against the licenses. I'm not against some of the regulations. Some of them are a little ridiculous. Um, but it's also because you have people like NAR lobbying against wholesaling with all the money and everything. We don't have anybody lobbying for the wholesalers, like Jerry Norton always says. I'm not against with his proposal of kind of having like a wholesaling NAR ourselves, where we kind of resource, we all have to get licensed, pay for continuing education there, and this way we could lobby against any crazy rules that are kind of stupid, just against wholesaling.
Right.
Because there are people that do take advantage, and there are some predatory wholesalers out there, and I think the regulation, the licensing, and if we had like a collective group, um, like a wholesaling committee, would then not eliminate it, but help weed them out more and more, and then eventually, hopefully, eliminate. Because even with NAR, you have some bad agents. Even if you have a wholesaling committee, I'm sure you'll have some bad wholesalers. It's just the way
Yep.
it is. But it'll be a lot less, I think. And I think when people hear regulations, they get nervous and they think, "Oh, I'm never going to do it again." Like, no, all that's going to do is just mean like the people doing like honest business are still going to be able to do that. Maybe they just need a license, right? Or they have
Hmm.
to do something extra. They put an extra sentence in their contract. Nothing crazy. I think South Carolina came out with some crazy rule that it's like you can't wholesale without a license, and if you have a license, you can't wholesale. So like again, ridiculous, right? It's just they're trying to eliminate equitable interest, but people have been wholesaling since the country was founded. So like, yeah, we need people fighting for the wholesalers.
Yeah, I like that idea of there being some sort of an organization like NAR,
Yeah.
like the people who are part of NAR have that little R, right? So they can say they're a realtor, right? Which is different
Yeah.
than a normal real estate agent. And that would certainly raise the level of quality with, some of these people who are coming in. And if they can get certified,
Hmm.
right, to be a certified wholesaler, like maybe some acronym that, people agree to, and then, maybe there's some dues, right? Like you probably wouldn't mind shaving off, a few $100s a year to go to some sort of a committee that lobbies and argues in favor of, good wholesaling rules.
100%. I'm all for that. I would love it.
Yeah.
Everybody on my team would get licensed. I'd get licensed. And then it would just add that level. Like when you're a general contractor, you have a license, right? When you're an agent, you have a license. CPA, I have a license. So like, I'm not against the licensing. I had to pay dues to the, for to be an accountant. I think it's necessary, especially with a lot of these regulations coming down now that are pretty unfair for wholesalers and equitable interest. I mean, we owe it to ourselves to try to fight back, right? And the best way to do that is pool our money. It's a very, very, very heavy cash business. We could all pull our money together and start fighting some of these regulations that are unfair to keep wholesaling alive and well, weed out some bad wholesalers, and just keep the overall business model going.
Oh yeah, I'd be in favor of that too. I
I
think
mean, it's a
it would
billion
be.
dollar industry. Like
Oh yeah.
we have to do something. Otherwise, if we don't do anything, somebody else will that isn't in our favor, and we could, wind up hurting ourselves. So I'm all for getting wholesaling regulated, but by us.
Yeah. Do you know if Jerry has done anything with that concept? I almost remember a couple years back seeing something that maybe even Jamil was part of.
Yeah, they said something back when I started, and then they said something again last week or 2 weeks ago on Wholesale Hotline about that. I don't
Hmm.
know what's coming of it, but I'm if they come up with something, I'm all for it. Like I do think I like Jerry's proposal and idea, and I think the four of them kind of leading the pack, on the board for the committee.
Oh
Jerry,
yeah.
of course, he's all on top of this stuff. Would be amazing.
Oh yeah. I definitely believe there's a place for us kind of holding ourselves to a higher standard. And um, I was reading your and Helena's vision statement on your website, and So there was something on there about, a commitment to steadfast transparency. Why do you think that's so important to put in your vision statement as a company?
Yeah, I mean, like, if we're not transparent or honest, with people, especially people within our team, how can we expect people to be honest and transparent with us, right? And we're not doing anything shady, so we have nothing to hide. So, if I can't be transparent with you, then what am I trying to hide, really, right?
Right.
And the more, brutally honest you are, like, there's no reason to beat around the bush or to lie or, make up these convoluted stories with people if you could just be, straight up. There are
Yeah.
times where, when you're selling, you're negotiating, right? So like you always like that goes out. I'm not talking about like, how I'm trying to negotiate like a contract and things like that. I'm just talking about overall like the things that matter. Like we had a deal where an appraisal came back really low, and then all of a sudden the buyer had to lower the fee by $35,000. So I called the agent up and I just told him everything. I was like, hey, this would happen. I sent them the appraisal report, even though it had somebody else's name on it. Um, I explained to them the situation. I resonated with the seller, and I was like, listen, like the only other thing we could do is this. Either I need a 35K lower, or I'm gonna have to cancel, or and then the lender said that they could try to get a second opinion. So now the agent's working with me on that. She sent me an extension. She's getting me whatever I need for the lender. We're communicating everything. And there's no lying. It's not like I'm fluffing up a story or making up extra repairs or things like that. I just told them exactly what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better just to keep everybody on. They're going to find out anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
even with
why delay the
wholesalers,
inevitable?
like I never tell a wholesaler I'm a buyer. So many people do that. Like wholesalers are like, oh no, yeah, I'm a cash buyer, I'm an end buyer. They never bought a thing in their life. They probably even never wholesaled a deal. So like
Right.
every time a wholesaler comes up to me like, oh bro, somebody gave me your name, are you a buyer? I'm like, nope, I'm a wholesaler. I've wholesaled a lot of deals, but I am not a buyer. So I'm
Hmm.
not even gonna play that card.
Interesting. That is one of the places that is kind of a gray area when it comes to going out there and starting the wholesaler or wholesale rather, because sellers are leery and so are agents.
Yep.
So how do you navigate that conversation with an agent when, sometimes the first thing they're going to ask you is, are you a wholesaler? And, because you don't want the deal to blow up.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not technically just a wholesaler. Like we've taken down multifamily before. We've raised money in our GPs in like 400 and something units. So I'm actually not lying when I say I'm an investor. So, but I just tell agents like, are you a wholesaler? Like I've wholesaled before. Like I'd be stupid not to. You know what I mean? Like I can
Yeah.
make $20,000 in a month when it would take me 3 months. So yes, I've wholesaled before, but my main like goal is to just close on this thing. So all
Yeah.
I care about is getting closed. So I'm going to look at it from a rental perspective, from a burr, from a flip, and also from a wholesale, of course. So, but if I close, you care. They're like, no. I'm like, all right, sweet. I've even told
Yeah.
agents like, hey, listen, I got 16 deals in escrow right now. I wholesale everything. So, send me this. I'll give you an extra 2,000 on top of whatever commission your seller's paying you, but bring me the deal. And they don't care.
You're right. They don't care about that. At least the ones that understand the business,
Yeah.
right? Some people just don't. Like they've never worked with a wholesaler. Maybe they had one transaction that where the wholesaler canceled because they didn't have their disposition plan in place. So
Yep.
now they got a sour taste in their mouth to all wholesalers. And everybody's calling them and talking to them. So they're like, are you a wholesaler? When really
Yep.
all they want to know is, can you close? That's the
Oh,
most
you're
important
reliable.
thing for them because when they close, they get paid.
Yep. And that's it. And some people don't even put up EMD. So I never try to say EMD due at the end. I'm just like, if they gave me 3 days, I'll put it up on the third day, obviously, because if I could sell it on day two, I have no reason to put up money.
Right.
So, but I put it up all the time.
Yep.
Money always goes up. So I'm never like, hey, I'm not going to put up earnest money, so that the agent knows, like, because they always say like, oh yeah, had this investor, they didn't even put up their deposit, and then they canceled. Like, so, just showing like, listen, I'm actually trying to make something happen. So like, I intend to get this closed. I'm going to put up earnest money, so I actually utilize my full inspection period.
Yeah.
And I've
That's
told
smart.
agents before too, during where like, even if I were to retrade or something, like, listen, like it wasn't for me. I wholesale this one. My guy came in a little lower. I'm going to need this at this price. At that point, I'm not really making much money, but I'm still willing to do the deal if I could get it here. Otherwise, I can't because
Yeah.
I'm there below contracting.
So that's one of the things that probably was a reality check when you started doing wholesaling, is that like, oh yeah, you might actually have to put earnest money deposit down.
Yeah.
Whereas, a lot of people get attracted to this business thinking there's going to be no out of pocket costs and it's free to do it and all these things. But if you've got some liquidity, you can put some money in the bank so you can actually put EMD down, get the full 10 or 15 days of marketing time. Like, it's a huge asset.
Yep.
What are some of the other things that you would tell somebody new? Like, just do these things. It'll make it so much easier for you to close deals and make money.
Yeah, I would say pick one market, only one market. Start even in one city in the beginning. Don't do the whole state. Pick one market and one outreach method. Like if you're going to do direct to agent, perfect. Are you going to do MLS or are you going to do agent outreach where you're going to cold call agents? Pick one of those. Or are you going to do direct to seller or are you going to do direct to wholesaler? Doesn't matter which one you choose. They all work. Different business models though. Don't do them all. Do one of them. Right? And one market, and just be consistent. Just constantly do it every single day. Show up, do at least 4 hours a day, and have an intention behind each and every single day. Right? And if you don't have EMD, which most people worry about, partner with people. Right? I've had people. You could have gator lenders. You could have wholesalers that, like, for instance, for me, like if you send me a deal and you don't have EMD, I would only lend on it. Like I'm not a gator, but I would lend on it if before you lock it up, you ask me the price, I approve the price, and then I go under contract. We sign a JV 60-40, 60 in my favor. Because now I'm not lending, I'm actually putting an EMD on my own contract. So like I'll
Yeah.
do that all day, every day. So you have different workarounds, get creative with it. Gator lenders lend on EMD. So
Mm-hmm.
if you need EMD, that's not an excuse. Just figure it out, get creative. Don't take no for an answer, right? Figure out how can you do it. You know,
Yeah.
there's ways to there's almost a solution to everything. You just got to ask the right questions.
Oh yeah, you're right. The EMD is not a problem. There's way too many solutions, but that's what
Yeah.
people do. Like, we look for reasons why it won't work instead of looking for solutions to make it work.
Yeah, because you don't
Um,
believe it's going to work in the first place. You don't think you're going to be
right.
successful. Because if you know it's going to work, you look for reasons why it's going to work. But if you have any doubts, you're going to look for reasons why you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't ever look for a reason why I can't do something. It's always yes, it'll work out. Everything's going to happen because I believe wholeheartedly that everything that I want to do in my life will work. It will happen. So like if you have that doubt or you think things aren't going to work out, you're kind of dabbling and you don't really have that belief, you will find reasons why you won't be able to do it. I mean, it takes the same amount of energy. Anytime you do something, you're not 100% sure it's going to work out. You have to have faith or not, right? You either have faith that it'll work out, or you have faith that for some reason it's just not going to work out. Why would you think the
Yeah.
other way, right? Because then
It
it's a
becomes a
prophecy.
self-fulfilling prophecy too, right? Like, you start putting it
Exactly.
out there and you think it's not going to work. Well, you're causing it not to work. And then certainly when something goes sideways and there's an issue, you're not going to like hustle your face off to like find another buyer or make sure the seller is happy and like sell a retrade, or like trying to find out ways of keeping the
Yep.
transaction on the rails instead of being like,
Exactly.
oh, I knew it wasn't going to work, and walking away from the deal and canceling.
Exactly. And you're like, see, I knew it. I was right. Well, you were right from before it even started. You didn't have to wait for a circumstance to happen to tell you were right. You were right from the get-go when those words came out of your mouth.
And that's why it was so important for you and Helena to help Skylar close that deal, because not only he didn't just make 2,500 bucks or like whatever you guys decided to work out. Um, you helped him prove to himself that this whole process works.
Yep. And we do that with a bunch of people. We've done a ton of people's first deals, second deals, or they went dry and then they wound up getting it again. So we've done a lot of that, and it's always great helping people out. Even with our sales team, like when they get a contract, we want to sell it more, so they get the commission and they get the contract, than us getting paid. You know, so like we want we want other people to succeed, and in turn we do too.
Oh yeah. But that's the only way you go from closing one deal a few years ago to closing hundreds of deals and having a goal of doing $6 million in one market. Like, that's the way you get there, is by helping others. And what you put out there comes back. And, with the way that you guys have designed your company and how you put yourselves in the business, and you do what you say you're going to do, and you follow through, and you're accountable, and, you're a respected person in the community, like all of that has led to you being able to franchise this thing here in the next year or two.
Yeah. I mean, everything's relationships, right? And how you make people feel. They're not going to remember like what you did. They're just going to remember how you make them feel,
Yeah.
right? So if you could just try to make everybody feel good, you know, without like any detriment to yourself, you know, it doesn't cost you anything more to make somebody feel good, right? Help somebody
Right.
out if they're stressed or not in the same position as you. Like there are times where we will do a deal and I'm like, well, forget it. Let's just do it. Like this means a lot more to them than it does to us. Like we make a lot of money, but they don't. So let's just let it happen. Or let's kick them
Yeah.
back an extra $2,000. Like it's not a big deal to us. You
Right.
know. So yeah, have that like that other person in mind,
Yeah.
not yourself.
But there's also a place for being honest and being, forthright and telling people the truth, right? Which
Oh yeah.
sometimes hurts, right? It stings a little bit, or just, giving somebody some tough love, right? The people that maybe who are asking for help from you and they're playing victim, and you're like, come on, man, just get your shit together.
Yeah. Well, I don't even. I'm just like, listen. Do you hear what you just told me? Like everything you said, right? That's what's going on in your life, right? Yeah, well, that's why. Because look at what you're saying. You're painting your own picture. Like everything you're saying, you always have an excuse for. So if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So if you
Mm,
want them, then just keep saying what you're saying. Like nothing's going to change. But if you want to change, you have to change what you say and what you think and how you feel. Because if you vibrate low and you try to attract high vibration things, it's not going to happen. So if you get frustrated and you're trying to do a new task, you're vibrating low. So what do you think is going to happen? You're going to get low vibration things, canceled contracts, no's, horrible deals. But if you raise your vibration and now you're calling on a high vibration frequency, what do you think you're going to get? Deals, assignments, money, all that stuff. It's everything's in energy. Money's in energy. It's all in energy, right? And you attract what you think about. So if you're constant thought is on like, I can't do anything. I'm broke. All this stuff. What do you think you're gonna get back, right? The universe doesn't know scarcity; it only knows abundance. So you'll get an abundance of whatever you think. If you think of lack of money, you'll get an abundance of no money, right? You'll always have money
yeah.
drained from you in an abundance because that's all it knows. But if you think, I always have what I need, I always have enough, I always have, um, everything that I need, and everything I need is always coming my way. What do you think is going to happen? That exact thing that you're saying is going to come to fruition. So
Yep.
that's why you have to be very careful about the words that come out of your mouth. Very careful.
Oh yeah. It's a discipline. It takes a lot of
Yeah,
work.
it
And
does.
most people just don't put the work in because they're so busy with life. They're already working the 9 to 5 and they got their family responsibilities. And then, they're trying to spend a couple hours a day on their business, which, is inconsistent, and then you can be like, hey, man, work on your words. And they're like, okay, you know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's not for everyone.
Now, that's why, you know, the more intentional you are about it, then the more you'll start seeing why your life has gone the way it has and why it's going the way it's going to go. So like be very careful what you think about. Like if I told you that everything you think about will manifest 3 days from now, how careful would you be? Would you be about what you think about? Right? You'd monitor every single
Um,
thought, right?
yep.
And you'd be like, if something you don't like gets into your mind, be like, no, 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 I don't want that to happen. Let me think of something different.
Yep.
That's what happens. That is life. That is this what goes on in the outside world. I mean, it's all waves and frequencies, right? The observer effect with electrons and all that good stuff. So like there's a science to why manifestation works too.
That's amazing, man. Well, I really enjoyed us talking today. Learned a bunch more about you. You learned something about your background. Hopefully, you can run with that. um, but I appreciate you taking the time. So everyone's going to want to work with you, right? And so, who should contact you, and how can they do it?
Yeah. If you need help with selling deals in Florida, you have anything you want to send or you need buy prices, reach out to deals, DEALS at easyres.com. That's EZYRES.com. If you're a buyer and you want to get on our buyers list, a real buyer, not like a wholesale buyer, like you're actually buying deals, fixing and flipping, if you're a wholesaler, please reach out to deals. But if you're a real buyer, reach out to Dana@easyres.com. That's DANA. And then if we're also raising money for deals. Helene and I are always sourcing deals, multifamily deals, mobile home parks, development projects. So we always have opportunities for deals. So if you're interested in investing in some of those deals, reach out to Helena, HELENA @easyres.com, and John @easyres.com, JOHN. And then also follow me on Instagram, John Galan REI, JOHNGALANREI, and join my Facebook group, Wholesaler Resource Network. I go live there every Tuesday, Thursday at 3:00 EST.
Amazing, man. Well, thanks again for taking the time. I know you're super busy, but this was just a really cool time to hang out with you. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you here in the next few weeks at the Squad Up Summit. So if anybody wants to come hang out with John and I, check that out, squadupsummit.com or something like that. But thanks, buddy. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, man, me too. Thank you so much. And also, I would say, shameless plug, I would recommend Privy. I use Privy for all of our MLS deals, and all of our buyers came from Privy. So if you're not utilizing Privy, it's one thing that I firmly believe in, and I'll promote anything I believe in because I have it. So I would highly recommend, newer wholesalers too, find the way to get Privy, because you'll be able to get access to deals and buyers.
Appreciate that, man.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
everybody. Thanks so much for checking out this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. Please like and follow. Keep an eye out for future episodes of more really engaging interviews with people like John Galan here in the future. I hope everybody has a great day.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.